Let me double check that the sound is indeed working. Yep, okay. Right, so today, as you can see, I've moved on. I hit a point with the other mission that I didn't want to keep working on it because it got to the point where I wanted that I really needed to test it in order to figure out where to go from there. So, with that in mind, I've come across to another mission. This is another one that I had because I wrote down a load of concepts a while ago, and I've kind of picking some of the more interesting ones. And I tried something with this mission that hasn't worked, so I'm now taking a different approach to it. But it should be interesting, and I'll explain the concept behind the mission as I'm putting some bits and bobs in place. Actually, oh, you're right, Raptor. Good to have you back with us. One sec, I have a plan that I need to pull up for this mission. So a rough guide for how the mission's going to play out. Okay, so again, I'm not actually going to be able to test this mission because we're in the midst of the rewrite of the movement code. But I'll explain how I see this going. You can see there's two very basic undergrounds here. We will complicate those as time goes on, and in the end we'll probably just randomly scatter some stuff about. I should probably build it as if it was going to have multiple difficulties as well. Certainly the underground. But anyway, so what we're looking at in this mission is, first of all, there being two colonies, but to make it a bit interesting, you're actually allied with this other colony. So it's not a attack the other colony mission like the other ones have been. What it actually is protect the stupid ally mission. So essentially, what's going to happen is this level's going to be set up with enemy creatures on each side, like patches of them again. They're not really going to patrol that much. They might patrol between small areas, but they're mostly just going to be static. And what's going to happen at set intervals? Right, Tony Bjorn. Good to have you with us. What's going to happen at set intervals is the computer player is going to do stuff like tunnel out underground a load of enemies, or attack a group of enemies on the surface. And during those times, they're going to do it when they're really not set up to do it, and it'll be up to the player to support them. Additionally, there are going to be some attacks which come into your nest, and much like you'll be expected to support the enemy, or you'll have to support the enemy in order to not fail the mission. the enemy will come to support you during those times. So, first things first, I'm connecting the two colonies. Now, as with a lot of our level design philosophy, there should only be one route to either side. And the reason behind that is, well, it's not, we don't always do it on missions, but it can be a bit frustrating when we don't, because the creatures go round in directions that you don't expect them to. And that's not fun. Right, so now I've stuck a couple of ramps in. I'm going to edit the surroundings of the ramps to give access. To cover the back of them. Then we'll have some painting to do as well. I might try my hand at decorating this mission, just because I actually want to get my head around the level decoration tools that we've got in place better. And it might be nice for you to see those a bit. As you can see, I've built some like areas for creatures to hang around in, places for creatures to loiter. I've also got to block these areas off so you don't get creatures going around those ways. We'll do that with some pebbles. This one is going to be a beach tile set level. Called it Brood Sisters. And you're both going to be wood ants. As we know, a wood ant colony can have many queens. They're kind of interconnected colonies. Right. So with that in place there, I'm going to try and level those. So remove perturbation. This is removing the random perturbation of the tiles. As you can see, that makes everything a lot more uniform. Stops the tiles sticking through the I'm going to need to remove the invisible wall there as well. Do that now. Unfortunately, with the remove invisible wall tool, you can't see it working until you leave the tool, because it doesn't rebuild the there we are. So in these situations, one of these boxes, that one, I'm not actually convinced that's needed, because that's going to deal with that anyway. So what I can do is rotate it a bit. Put it in a more useful position. This basically stops the ants getting too close to the edge. Because like here, if the shortest path would be to go right over that clip there. However, with this in place, they path around it a bit so they don't all bunch up. Just letting you know that I won't be talking that much in this stream. I maybe sometimes, but I'm very busy right now with some things. Oh no, it's always good to have people in the stream, whether they're talking or not. Tony Bjorn, I know you're usually a more vocal person in the stream, and I appreciate that. But of course, things to do. We've all got things to do. Nearly summer. Just to mention, I'll mention it now. I won't be streaming next week. Should be streaming again the week after. But I'll be streaming tomorrow. I'll be streaming tomorrow as well as today. It's actually really warm here in the UK today. This doesn't have to be perfect, by the way, though I would prefer it not to jut out that much. That's probably fine. Again, though, I'm not really going to be able to test it. Would it be possible to attach a path blocker to all the cliff edges so you don't place them manually? They are actually automatically done in on the cliff edges. If you see the cliff edges, they actually have them. That's so ants don't walk really close to the edges, and they are automatically put on. These are the ramps, however, and the ramps are a little bit more manual, particularly in these ramps where I've done them a little bit off standard. So there are automatic ones placed in them. I've just edited the automatic one because these ramps are slightly in the wall, and as such, I wanted the path blocker, as you put it, it's actually a nav mesh modifier. I wanted that to be in a slightly different position than it would default to. I mean, we could have. I know, like in the StarCraft editor and that, when you put ramps in, it kind of locks it into a position with the tiles, and then deals with everything around it. And I think if we were to make a level editor for people, that would be how you want to do it. So it sets it up in set situations so people can just place them. However, the method that we're using at the moment gives us the freedom to do things like this, like have ramps that are partly in the wall and that sort of thing. I know it doesn't look right at the minute, but it will when we paint them. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I need to cut a hole. So here you'll notice that the floor is still there. What I need to do is I need to slice a hole in the nav mesh, not nav mesh, in the tile grid. And that's done with our tool as well. Hole. So basically just chop out looks like we've got it all. Oh, accidentally removed a bit too much there on the left. I'll deal with that in a second. Okay, so next is to see how that's affected the nav mesh again, because you've got to be able to navigate inside the tunnel. The tunnel, the way the tunnels work is a little bit fiddly. Most of the tile grid on the surface, everything happens automatically, but things like the tunnels here are a tad fiddly, but that looks fine. That one does at least. So look at this one. Right, that looks less fine. So that suggests to me that I've mucked up something here. So what we'll do is I'll just make this invisible for a second. Turn the tile grid off. Yeah, you'll see I missed one. There we are. And again, a quick check to check that that's corrected the issue. I suspect it will have done. Yeah. I think we're all good there. Okay. Okay. So next, are we going to get onto gameplay yet? But I might toy around a little bit with painting first before we get onto gameplay. Just a little bit. I'm not going to put everything in the level, but it'd be nice to have it looking a little bit more correct. I'm just saving at the minute. It takes a while to save the maps. There's a lot of information with them. Okay, saved. Okay, so let's have a look at the painter. Okay, just a quick experiment. Okay, so the texture weights are currently on 0. If I turn texture weight up in texture 1, okay, so that's like a rocky cliff. Turn it all the way up in texture 2. Okay, that's the like very sandy sand. Don't think that's quite. Oh, okay. There's an area there that I've mucked up. I'll deal with that now. Yeah. It's not quite the sand that blends with the. That's the one that blends with it. So one sec. believe you can actually paint the... I believe paint noise just kind of generates a generic noise pattern onto everything. I think it's a good way to start, just because that creates a blend on everything in the map. So if you miss anything slightly, it doesn't look so bad. Let's see if I can remember how to paint, for example, these. There is a way of doing it. See, that seems to have been slightly painted there. One sec, I'm just going to check up with Matt, see if he can inform me. Oh. One sec, I've got a exception. Oh, that's a full-on crash. Oh. Right, LSG Payne. Good to have you with us. Okay. Give me a moment. Looks like I might need to restart the engine here. I wonder when I saved it. Did I save it before I did the ramps? The ultimate question. Right, whilst that's loading, let's come to chat. Fair, I actually haven't been streaming that long. I have saved a couple of times during the stream, but I fear it might be... No, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. We're working on a new side mission. So we worked on one side mission the other few days, and that side mission's just an underground one, which is like kill things in a certain order puzzle in order to build up strength. Now I've got that one to the point where I want to test it. Hang on, back in the engine now. That one was yes, but oh, okay, this looks promising. Let me just check the... Okay, it wasn't that long ago. Just before we put the noise on, really. Okay. See if it crashes again. Oops. I just moved the tile grid slightly. Not what I wanted to do. Won't surprise me if the crash was due to our surface builder stuff here. Not necessarily, but really I wouldn't be surprised. Right. So this map is actually one where we've got an allied colony, and the ally is going to be doing stupid things, attacking stuff when it shouldn't, that sort of thing. And the idea of this mission is that you're going to have to jump in and save your ally. I'm going to make them defend you as well when attacks come into you, but mostly they're going to be a hindrance, not help. This is the first time we've experimented with allied colonies. Well, not allied colonies, but the player being allied with a colony. Okay, so Matt reliably informs me that I need to use the vertex paint mode. I think this might be too much for me to learn live on stream. I have done this before, but it's been a long time. Yeah, let's not get into that now. I'll wrap my head around that one when we're not in a stream. Right, I want to raise this tile because it was looking a bit out of place. Oh god, I didn't mean to do that. Let's reload the map. I had a huge brush there and I didn't realise it. And the problem is with our tool we haven't built undo into it properly. So yeah, pressing undo would not go well. It's a bit funny, but there's a cut off where it starts working. Like it doesn't like. There we are. That'll be it. That'll be the one. I need to remove random perturbation from there as well. There we are. Cool. Will the ants create visual paths where they walk a lot? As in a slight change of ground texture. They don't at the minute, you know. That's an interesting one. I know what you mean because in quite a few games, like you get kind of a footprint trail or something which slightly alters the floor. It's an interesting idea. I always thought a nice mechanic for the game would be something like once a trail's been going for a while, it becomes more efficient, or the ants get a speed boost on it or something. maybe that's something to consider in the future. Although you'd then want to design levels around that mechanic, so you want it so there's some food far away but is a large food source. Will you add trap jaws playable in free play or slave makers? Slave makers would be rather harder to work with. The first experiment with playable trap jaws is coming in one of these side missions. So I added them in just as like on the other side mission. The idea is the player can build trap jaws. And you're playing a Fulmicroraptor colony and you and the option, one of the options to build is trap jaws. Actually, wasn't that much work to get them into that because because it was already in place because of the enemy colony in the lab level. So I think the first experiments with that will come through that, and then there's the discussion of whether we could build like get Matt to model a trapjaw queen, so you could play it in free play, or you could just say it's a Fulmicroraptor colony that has trapjaws in free play to allow players to select them, or that sort of thing. Yeah, we'll definitely experiment with that, and we'll experiment with army ants as well. I mean, the slave makers is a bit of a funny one because they would be heavily mechanical, really, being taking the larvae from enemy nests. I think they're unlikely because of that, because they can't just fit into the game's current mechanics. I mean, I could just throw them into the game's current mechanics, but it wouldn't be very interesting. Right, so we got that. This will do for now. I'm not going to go too much into painting. Unfortunately, we're not really going to be able to test. I'll run a brief test to see if things move, but things weren't moving properly on the surface. Well, they weren't moving properly underground either, because of the rewrite that's going on at the minute of the movement code that Matt and Liam are heading up. It's a big job, and we're in a state at the minute where a lot of the movement's broken. So I mean, some of it works. Things like jumps are definitely broken at the minute. If I run this map, it's based on, you'll notice this dialogue from 3.2, but the idea is we can look into the enemy nest. Oops. I think we're this one. My guess oh no, we're this one. Yeah. Yeah, so there's just a load of pathing failures going on. It's also floating as well to make things worse. So I'll bring it up to the surface and see if that makes a difference. It's another tile failure there. So yeah, this is why we can't test the levels at the moment. They seem to work alright underground, but overground they go mad. Twitching DJ is hosting me. Thanks very much. We can use the lava steel as food, maybe. Maybe slave makers will be useful in multiplayer. I'm not sure. See, if I did do if we did the mechanics I want with slave makers, the only that I think it'd feel right is being able to steal it and then maybe have a second. Once you've stolen the larvae, it allows a second of the stolen larvae type to spawn on the stealer's tile. However, I don't know how useful it'd be, because I think once you're that deep into someone's nest, you've pretty much killed them. That's the thing, it might be a mechanic that takes ages to implement and that never gets used because it's a bit of a funny one, really. Okay. So, right, I'm basically going to need to try and put this level together without being able to test it. What we'll do in the future, when we've got when these things have come to, when the movement codes come together, we'll saying, yeah, when the movement codes come together, we'll test these levels all together and put them together whilst testing them, because the other level I haven't put all the food in place yet, but I kind of didn't see the point in doing that because I'd get it wildly off the amount of food you need. So in this one, again, I'm just going to have to guess things to start with, and then when we can test it. It's my own fault that I broke the movement code as well. I was not meant to pull any of the changes that Matt and Liam have done. I was just meant to wait, and then one day, without thinking, because I do it all the time, I just clicked the pull button and thought, no, cancel, and it was too late. The changes had been pulled. I could roll back, but I had uncommitted changes myself, so that would involve a complicated rolling those back, and it just didn't seem worth it. My own fault for not committing my changes often enough, really. I'm creating your own colony. The options to choose, but again, we'll see. Oh yeah, there's loads of stuff we could do with the game. We've got plans to take the campaign to its conclusion, and whatnot. And at that point, we'll probably say this is version 1.0, but then we'll keep going from there. Okay, I haven't done anything in a while, so let's get some stuff done. Okay, so to start with, let's go to the player's underground and give the player some initial food and stuff to begin with. So I'm going to edit their underground. Let's actually start setting this up how we'd expect to see it in a level. As always with these levels, I don't like to dictate the player's nest shape. I think that's one of the more fun things in the game is designing your own nest. So anything I can do to promote creativity in nest design. I shall. And one of those things is to give the player maximum amount of build area they can have. Now this, we're going to need to put some indestructible rock behind it. Doesn't need to be a huge amount, doesn't really need to connect to anything. But it does need to be there. And again, these tiles need their perturbation removed. But there's no tool option for that because it's much less common underground. So there we go. Now that looks a bit clunky there. Does that look like a blurry texture? Yeah. Yeah, it's not about that. Right, okay, so I want to give the player as much space as possible. So instead of putting food right next to their nest here, what I'll do is I'll put some up here so they can tunnel out up this way to get some. So I need to create a cavern. And in it, this will be the initial food you're meant to collect, so I want it just to be easy to get. Looking for the green tile surface, I think. There's woodlouse and woodworm tile surface there. Just going to make an area of woodworm. To be fair, the woodworm looks so generic, they could be anything. They're just little grubs, aren't they? I'm not going to put any enemies in here either. This is literally meant to be your first port of call to get you off the ground. I'll do for that. Right, coming back to chat. Have you got an idea for the Solenopsis or the fire ant model? What do you mean the species of it? I think it's likely to be, what's it, Solenopsis invitica? One minute. A species have an idea. I think it's Invitica. It's not just Invitica. The invasive one. We're not sure yet though. We're not 100% on it. Here's a question: are you going to increase the maximum number of ants for Gene Thief because in free play it starts to cost you a lot of food? We'll consider it. We'll wait to see what the movement savings end up being. But we've also got to be careful because I don't just want to shift the goalpost there. So if we suddenly get enough space for, I mean, you can still get quite a lot of ants at the minute, and it does start to the cost gets exponential, isn't it? Exponential, so it gets really expensive to build more ants at some point in free play. After you've been playing for a long time, though. The rules for free play are changing a little bit as well. I'm introducing the ability to let me think. The creatures will scale up now, so as you play, things get more difficult. Rather than there being just more and more creatures on the surface, they'll start to become harder and harder. That doesn't need to be connected, and it looks a bit weird. Let's deal with that. So yeah, going back to the fire ants. I was thinking about their abilities the other day, and there's room for a bit of play with this because I'm not convinced about all of them. But I mean, the thing that defines fire ants, the thing that things that people think about when they think about fire ants, seems to be one, their venomous sting. They're stingers, not biters, really. They and it's a painful sting, so their sting should feature heavily in their design. Yeah, exactly. Tony Bjorn. They will deal venom damage just in their normal attack. So they'll be a melee fighting venom damager. You need to come up with an attack animation that makes them look like they're stinging, gripping and stinging rather than biting. The other things that you think about, they'll have similarities to the black ants, but I want to carve out their own existence. Really, I don't want them to feel like just a more powerful black ant or anything like that. I want them to fit into the into the somewhere into the design of it. So the other thing people think about, one of the other things people think about with fire ants, and let me know if there's stuff I've missed as well, is of course their interactions with water. So their ability to build rafts and bridges. I know certainly when there was flooding in America, there was lots of images of fire ant rafts popping up. And another thing you think about with them is how numerous they are. So large colonies. Lots of them. Would fire ants be able to walk underneath all other ants because they're so small? They'll definitely be able to walk under the majors, under the leafcutter majors. Not sure about walking under the. Because at the moment, the black ants are that, and the wood ants are considered the smallest sized creature in our game. So they're probably still collide with them, unless we can do something with no collision with anything. I'll think about that one. Although they do have to collide with each other, definitely, because you don't want to get an infinite amount of them into a single space. I suppose we will have more slots in the formicarium. Yeah, I imagine so. I'll probably want to increase it, yeah. But I find your population in the formicarium doesn't matter so much because there's only limited stuff you can actually do within the formicarium before you want to start taking them into free play. So yeah, just gonna open my window a bit wider because it's heating up in this room. Oh, nice breeze. Quali Connie, good to have you with us. You don't want to stick your hand into a nest of fire ants? No, I imagine you don't want to. So what else do we know about fire ants? What else is interesting about fire ants that we could potentially get into the game? Maybe there's fire ant abilities you can select or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to keep building in the player's underground over here. I'm just going to create a few caverns and then we'll fill them up afterwards. This looks like it should be a cavern. Something I missed in the leafcutter levels was the underground exploration aspect of the game. So, like in all other levels, you've got a purpose to clearing out the underground. But the leaf cutters, because they can't eat stuff underground, the only purpose in clearing underground is to create more living space. So it felt more like a chore than something you wanted to do. And that's probably fine for leaf cutters. But I like the underground to feel interesting. You really enjoyed the leaf cutters. No, that's good. I think we made the leaf cutters mechanically different enough to so the levels felt really interesting and really different. Also with the new environment, that was a breath of fresh air. We've been on the beach for too long. Yeah, the free play update should be good. It should also come with the first of the monthly levels. So there's going to be a little bit of a drought at the minute. I'm not quite sure how long. We estimated the worst case would be 3 months, although we're already a month into that. That's a worst case though. Although there's still a lot to do with the new movement code. I say with the new movement code, it should really speed things up. If it doesn't, then we've wasted a lot of time. But the estimates are the estimates and the tests done have been very promising. And with more speed comes the ability to build more stuff. And I think that's going to come into play a lot in the fire ants. So the current thinking of how the fire ants are going to work, particularly with the right, so the idea is that at level 3, so when you get your tile up to level 3, the tile will produce an extra ant. So a level 3 fire ant tile, will have 2 fire ants from it. That's one of the things I can work on probably after this. After I've put this level together, because then I'll have 2 monthly levels partly done. I can start work on the next major update then. So with 2 fire ants being spawned from the same tile at level 3, it kind of gives you an incentive to upgrade to level 3. Well, you've got to make sure you balance it. So basically, from level 1 to level 2, you have a big jump in the ant's ability. And then from level 2 to level 3, you have slightly less of a jump, but they get the extra ant. So you kind of balance it that way. So that's one of the ideas. Then with the unit options, I've come up with one of the unit options, which I quite like. Yeah, the idea is they'll sting instead of bite, so they'll do venom damage. I really don't know yet, Tanny Bjorn. I haven't got a solid idea for how I want them to play. Whether they may be slightly more vulnerable than a black ant. Problem is, I want to be careful with them because the black ants become useless at a certain level of AoE. So it's okay with the like enemy colonies. It's not so bad because the only AoEs you've got with enemy colonies is the wood ants, and as powerful as their AoE is, it's not completely overpowered, so it doesn't completely wipe out black ants. However, with uber creatures, certainly black ants are completely well against they're not completely useless, but they are easily slaughtered by the ubers because ubers all have an AoE attack. And I want to be careful with it. So I've got some ideas there as well, which is perhaps giving some AoE resistance. So give certain ants the ability to reduce incoming damage if it's an AoE. So potentially fire ants could do that. So maybe they can be picked off single targeted very easily. So they've got low health in that respect, but an AoE attack would have reduced damage on them. These are just ideas that are floating around in my head. Yeah, like a glass cannon, but not so useless against AoE. But that so the different types of fire ant. So the option that you'll get in the species. I have only figured out one of them, but I quite like it, and that's that they once the egg's been on the tile for a minute. So once an egg has been on the tile for a minute, it becomes free to hatch. So the idea being that if you keep your army out of combat for a minute, then all the fire ants would be free to hatch. Then send them in, get them all killed, they'll hatch again. Then keep those out of combat for a minute. It should create an interesting playstyle, but I'm not sure what we want to do with the what I want to do with the other one. Right, so no, I'm quite afraid of the scientist. No one really knows what he'll do next. I'm afraid of scientists too. Immune to AoE isn't the aim, but it's reduced damage from AoE will be the thought process. Right, so yeah, LSG Pain. If one of our Kickstarter goals was actually fire ant bridges, and they're going to feature quite heavily in the campaign levels. Not sure how they're going to feature outside of the campaign levels, but certainly one of the levels has the fire ant bridges. Is a I mean, the obvious thing to do with the bridges is to create islands, isn't it, on the surface? Keep calm and let the fire ants put fire on the undergrowth. Have a nice day. Yes, indeed. So yeah, the fire ant bridges giving you access to other food sources and other areas of the maps, and maybe we can start building that into free play. Certainly in the in maps we bring, free play maps we bring in with the fire ant update. But certainly the bridges will feature quite prominently in the campaign. Don't touch my babies. Right. Okay, so we have a few areas down here. So let's think about this. Okay, so I want really just increasing danger in these areas. So maybe an area with some wood lice here. So wood louse tile surfer. Maybe this can be area 2 that doesn't have any enemies in it. Okay, so the next area, I'll put it over here. We want probably a couple of devil's coach horse larvae. Oh, what did I just do? I want tile surfer. Okay, normal tile surfer. An insane tile surfer. And a hard tile surfer. Probably another insane one as well. Yeah, that's fine. They can be devil's coach horse. Not bothered about that. Right, I'll put the food in afterward. No, I've got to remember what I'm putting in because I can't see them. Resources. So there's something called a hapless morsel around here. It's random hapless morsel. There it is. Put quite a few of these in here. Okay, some more food sources. Okay, so this one. Next one up. Tile dürfer. Okay, so a normal mode, hard mode one, and an insane mode one. Right, so what do we want these to be? Right, if I'm trying to keep this level grounded slightly more in reality than the other one, I should probably keep them things that would be underground. So Devil's Coach Horse. Okay, so those two can be Devil's Coach Horses, and the insane one can be an adult. Right, let's grab some hapless morsels. Yeah, got 5. Come with me, 5 random hapless morsels. Duplicate, move over here slightly, rotate. And again. See, it might turn out that I need to remove some of this food. I might be giving the player way too much food. But we'll see. maybe a map that is flooded to get to other locations. You'll be able to make bridges or rafts. Yeah, be able to move on to islands and that sort of thing. Yeah, there'll be some way of telling the ants to form the bridge. Matt's got an idea of how he wants it to look. And work. So we're going to let him come up with how it'll actually physically work. I don't know whether the ants will just move to the area and then kind of like climb into the mass of other ants and the bridge will just extend. That might be what it looks like visually. How you actually activate it? See, it would be nice if we could do it within our current mechanics. So, for example, maybe if you placed a marker in water and the ants would try and form a bridge from the nearest point to that marker. Although that wouldn't necessarily work when you're place it on the island. Maybe that's what it is. You place it on an island. You place a marker on the island, and any fire ants in that marker group go to the nearest point to that island and start forming the bridge. Still trying to work out the kinks. Yeah, I think you'll be extending the bridge probably one tile at a time. It'll take a certain amount of ants to move a tile further forward in the bridge. But you have to. The concept of fire ants is they're going to be quite numerous, and certainly that ties into our update, our movement code update that should speed things up as well. Oh look, there's the dead. Might leave that there. If that's going to be there, though, I think this needs a Devil's Coach Horse adult, definitely. That needs some food, doesn't it? Why do you always put tiger beetle behind the entrance? Sneaky jump. Actually, that tiger beetle that was already there, that's because I copied and paste. I basically saved a copy of 2.2 to make this level. So it's there because it's there in 2.2. But it's there now, so. Although this one's actually defended. There's a few creatures defending that, so I'm not sure I'd actually go for it. It is defended. Right. Nearly there with the underground. Just trying to think what else I could do. Tempted to put some funnel web stuff in. Some proper. I might do that in the enemy colony. So, because you're going to have to help the enemy colony when they tunnel stuff out underground, I might make an area that's just got loads of funnel webs in. But maybe the enemy's just sending their ants down that corridor and they just get nuked by the funnel webs. You have to go down there and help them out with it. Yeah, Velvet Worms will have a spray when they do make it into the game. They'll have their sticky glue spray thing. I'm not sure whether we want it to stun or. So there's no immobilize in the game at the minute as such, because you can slow and you can stun. So maybe it'll be a stun. I have to think about it. I think what it'll probably be is a stun and a damage over time, so it stuns the creatures and they start taking damage. Or maybe stun and a vulnerability, so it stuns them and they take more damage. the idea of making creatures eating other creatures is a good idea, because most of the time I get free food every creature killed, which makes free play a lot easier. So making the creatures eat dead bodies that they killed will make free play mode a lot more challenging. Yeah, it would. I think I actually noted that down in ideas in the free play thing. Probably won't make it into this update. I mean, food decays on the surface, so you've only got a limited amount of time. By decays, I mean it's got like 2-minute timer before it despawns. Okay, it's just here left. I'll just put an insane and a hard one here. They can both be adults. Easy, you can get that one for free. But it does need some resources in there. Don't think it needs a huge amount of resources, particularly as Easy's going to get this area for free. You can't hide food like we used to, because even the harvestable creatures show up on the mini-map. I mean, they're not completely obvious because they are just like a tiny brown dot. It doesn't tell you what's there, so it could literally just be a single item of food, but... Right. Saving. You might have given the idea when we were first working at free play. It's definitely one of the ideas that I've taken from somewhere, so it might have been you. Right, forward flies are, as you say, they make a good challenge mode, and I think that's probably what will end up being the challenge mode. However, the mechanics of how they work is what is stopping us from going, right, yes, let's do them that way. We've got some ideas of how we would like them to work, and basically there'd be certain food sources which would be infected with forest flies on the map. Let's have a read of what's coming up. Plans to add possibly making improvements to workers or queen chambers. Level 3. I mean, the queen chambers sort of represent the first ants in the colony, and they're not as strong as the other ants that come later. Haven't got any plans to currently change that or make you be able to upgrade them. I mean, I don't know how often people upgrade workers, but you probably do it, I guess, in free play when you've run out of other things to upgrade. Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, back to the forward flies. So obviously a forward fly, the ants have got very little defense against them, and that's often an issue we have when developing these creatures. I mean, the way we did the beach tiger beetle larvae, the ones that come out the ground and pull you in, we gave you the ability to fight them. However, we also made it very unprofitable to fight them. So essentially, you can kill the odd one that's in your way, or you will be killing the odd one that's in the way, but you'll be avoiding them the best you can. I personally don't upgrade the workers usually. I just build more of them. But there is advantages to upgrading them. They do move faster and that sort of thing. So with the forward flies, now in nature you do get the odd minim on the back of like a leafcutter major, helping fight off forward flies. So the way a mission with forward flies in would work, I think. Now this is just kind of our early thoughts on the process. Would be there's infected areas of food with forward flies, and you've got to visually look at the food to tell whether it's got the forward flies in it, like whether there's forward flies in weight. And if you go to harvest from that food source, you will lose an amount of ants, like sort of randomly. They will pick a random target, land on it, lay eggs, fly off, and then the ant's on a timer until it dies. Then you have then when a Medea or Major when a Medea or Major get upgraded to level 3, they get a small minim on their back, which means if a forward fly targets them and goes for them, the minim fights them off. Like, it's literally riding on the back of it. So they get invulnerability at level 3 to the forward fly. So basically, your tactics will be to ignore the forward fly infested foods or avoid the forward fly infested foods early on in the mission until you got level 3, and then later in the mission when you can't avoid them anymore, you want to be trying to upgrade your Medea and Majors to level 3 so they can fight them off. Alternatively, you could also build a load of workers to go with them, like, that are sacrificial workers, and hope that the workers get randomly selected as the targets for the fireflies. So there'll be a couple of ways of approaching it. The raspberry crazy ants. I'm not sure if they're in our plan yet, but they are a natural enemy, and they get introduced to areas with fire ant problems, don't they? Because they're a natural enemy of the fire ants. You could have caterpillars on the leaves. I don't know, maybe like the leaf hops of a creature, or a creature you can hurt. Yeah, there's sorry, I'm playing with nail clippers. There's enemy's enemy is our ally. Why do caterpillars kill forward flies then? What's the thinking behind that? Okay, so this is the enemy nest then. So I'm gonna start work on this. And what we're going to have in the enemy nest is pockets of enemies that they'll take on. Now, the enemy's not going to have stuff like we've got. They're not going to have nice, easy areas to harvest from. They're going to have a much more difficult time of things. And they're going to do some stupid things. even fairly early on. This is going to be a very scripted enemy colony. It's not going to think for itself at all. Not like the... Oops. Not like the leaf cutters in 3-1. It's just going to follow a set pattern. And this level is going to follow a set pattern. So basically, if you play the level enough, you will be able to learn the level and learn what happens at certain points. What kind of stupid are we talking about? It's going to make mistakes on purpose. It'll be scripted mistakes. We're talking it's going to tunnel out areas that it's not strong enough to beat. It's going to it's also going to attack enemies on the surface it's not strong enough to beat. And the idea is that you have to come to its aid. It's part of your you're both wood ants. You're allied. So the hive bot is at the minute that's very much on the back burner whilst we're sorting out the movement code. It wouldn't be too hard for us to set up a hive bot that had a plan, because at the minute it's the sequence bot. What's implemented in 3.1 is actually a pre set up plan. No, this is it's an allied nest. This is if I said enemy, I didn't mean it. This nest is it's an ally in this level. And the objective is to keep your ally alive whilst it does stupid stuff. Right, so in the plan I've got they tunnel out. So there's 3 things that happen. I think they're going to happen a couple of times each. So the computer tunneling out some underground that it shouldn't be doing. I think I'm going to set the enemies up to attack you if you attack them as well. Yes, you have to look after this other colony. I just thought it'd make for an interesting scenario. A bit different from anything we've done before, really. I mean, the idea is that you can always see into the enemy nest. So enemy? I keep saying enemy. It's not an enemy. Keep seeing to keep. Oh, there's some food there. Need to get rid of that. Oh, hang on. Bug. This must have been introduced recently. I see the food is being displayed from my nest and the enemy nest. Hello. It's kind of a it's a hint at the idea of wood ants having super colonies. That's why I did it with wood ants, because feasibly they would get on with each other. When I was experimenting with the level, I wanted to see if I could connect the undergrounds, but I couldn't. there's too much of the game which relies on you going out through one nest entrance and into the other. I abandoned that one quite quickly because it's not, these missions aren't meant to take me a long time to put together. They're meant to be quite quick. Okay, I need to jot this bug down. I wonder when this was introduced. Mini map resources for your underground showing on enemies underground. Yeah, super colonies do consist of many queens. Many queens. It's a really good documentary, actually, the super colony one. Maybe you could think of this as a situation where two queens are starting to form a super colony, or something like that. These nest entrances are actually the wrong way around at the minute. This one up here is meant to be the player's one, but it's not. I'll just switch them over. Fine. No, you're not controlling the enemy colony. Not in this situation. This is very much a protect your ally mission. Should switch these two over. Okay, so the simplest way for me to switch these two over is going to be to copy the location and rotation. I swear I don't have to worry about the setup or anything. Right. Okay. Basically, I needed the computer player to have a bigger area to work with, because the computer player is the one that's going to be making the mistakes. Fledgling super colony. Yes. Well, it wouldn't be super then, would it? Would it be a superior, maybe? Superior colony, not a super colony. I can't combine the nests because of the way the game mechanics are set up. So each player's got their own underground, and the game relies on each player having their own underground, and they can only build in their own underground. They can only do various stuff in their own underground. Now, each creature has something on it called colony location, which is just a number, and it's -1 if they're on the surface, or 0, 1, 2, 3 if they're in someone's nest. And that's used for a massive amount of things in the game. And that there's only one point in the game that, well, 2 points where that changes. One is when an ant first appears, or a creature first appears, that's set, and it does a collision check with the floor, checks what they're standing on, looks at what that is, sets that number. The second situation is when they move through the tunnel exit. So if they're going to the surface, it sets it to -1. If they're going into someone's nest, it sets it to that nest. Now, what I tried to do, and I did actually give this a go, was put the, and you'll see the remnants of what, oh no, you won't anymore. But at the beginning of the stream, you'll have seen there was a line going from this nest over here. It was because I tried to make it so there was a tunnel through. And I built the tunnel, and I placed a marker down on the enemy nest, and it crashed immediately. It's just not designed for it. Now, I could spend a long time trying to make maybe a transfer area or something. However, it would be a significant amount of work to do that, and that wasn't the point of these side missions. The side missions were never meant to be huge amounts of work. They were meant to be a quick way of reusing the assets that we've already built in the game in interesting ways to produce extra missions for people to play whilst they're waiting for the proper content for the game to be created. Right, so moving on. What are we thinking? Okay, so I can either work on the enemy's underground, which should be setting up for the their mistakes. I think they're going to tunnel out underground twice in the whole time. And you'll have to help, well, maybe 3 times. Okay, so I'll do 3. There's going to be 3 mistakes they're going to make underground. The first, I think, is just going to be a small one to get you used to the idea that the enemy is going to be doing stupid stuff underground. So maybe they'll tunnel out like very early on. They'll tunnel out like 5 Devil's Coach Horse, and they'll only have like 3 attacking ants, and maybe they're all the melee ones. So, and at the same time, I probably want to bring up a warning for the player saying the enemy colony has tunneled out creatures underground or something. And that's going to prompt the player to save them. Or maybe I'll even give an objective at that point, so a new objective comes up. I don't know. I need to think about a way of making sure the player's aware that there is fighting going on in the enemy colony. Now, there is a flashing thing that the number does when there's combat going on in that underground. I'm not quite sure how that works. In fact, I can probably test that just by adding a creature into the enemy underground and see what happens. Okay, that's not... That's not doing anything. That looks broken to me. See, they're moving. Not really sure why this isn't moving. Oh, it moves if I put it in your underground. Maybe it's allied. It's not. Wasn't that? Was it? It just wasn't moving. Well, I couldn't tell you what's going on with that. Likely something to do with the. Likely something to do with the repath, the work of the movement, rework of the movement code. Yeah, well, let's not worry about that for now. Ah, let's do Pain's back. I think I'm going to stream until 1, so in 15 more minutes, people. Ah, Whalecopter. Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of reaction time. Like, the player needs to be aware that something's going horribly wrong. And that's the thing I worry about with the underground stuff. So on the surface, it's not too bad because you can see something's going on. Yeah. Alternatively, I could do a timer, an idiot's timer. Time until idiot does something stupid. Do you enjoy your cruise, Whalecopter? Yeah, this is a it's just a fun mission I'm putting together, and just a side mission, and the idea is that you've got an ally that's a bit stupid and keeps doing stupid things, and you've got to save it. Where did you cruise to? Did they let you off at all? Okay, so I'm gonna set up the enemies underground. So I wanted an area that I could do some funnel web stuff in their underground, which might be quite fun. Might be quite funnel. Fair, the enemy colony can have a lot of like the wood amp melees, so they've got a lot of health, but they don't do much damage. The velvet worm isn't planned to be the challenge creature. It's the velvet worm's actually just meant to be a creature. I don't think we'll add it as the challenge creature. I mean, it's still an option, so I won't say definitely not, but I think we'll likely just introduce that generally to those levels, although we will have to rebalance things a little bit with them. And it would be nice to have one of these side levels as well come in when it gets introduced, to give people a chance to play something fresh with it. Okay, so that'll do for a funnel web area. This area is going to be the funnel webs, and there'll be resources for the computer down here. We need another area for them to do some. We need 2 more areas for them to do something stupid. Okay, so one I want to be fairly early on in the level. That can be there. Actually, let's move it further away from their queens, so the so when they do get attacked, it doesn't kill them immediately. So you've got some time to react. Ogre face spider. It's a cool name. I'll have to look into it. I don't really know much about them. Oh yeah, I can believe it's a real creature. Isn't there a Harry Potter spider as well? Like Sorting Hat spider or something like that. Right, so that'll be the second stupid area. What area for them to do something stupid in? I'll give them a normal cavern here. And that'll just have some woodworm in it. And then a final area for them to do something stupid. Over here looks good. Oops. Looks like I hit the edge of the map there. Let's have a look at some images of this ogre-faced spider. Oh, it's one of those. It's a traps them. I think we did actually look into these. It's another one of those, again, that I think could be too frustrating. Just because there isn't really any way of defeating them. We came up with a way of defeating the beach tiger beetle larvae, although in reality they probably wouldn't. Ants probably wouldn't attack them en masse. I mean, you could have it so you could have something like that you basically had to sacrifice an ant in order to get through. Maybe that takes it out of action for a minute. Or maybe you have those around certain food sources and you would just avoid them and then eventually they move on. Oh, I see. Do it like that. They are a very cool creature. Although we do need to focus on getting the next update out. As soon as we've done the movement code, I think it'll be full steam into the next... once the movement code's done and we get the free play update out, we'll be really hammering trying to get the fire ant stuff in. But yeah, there will be another interim update that will bring, I suspect, the velvet worm, the challenge mode for 3.1 and 3.2. And also a new free play map at that point as well. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to give the computer some woodworm. This is what's going to... What am I doing? Oh, I've just clicked and it's set to cavern. Oh no, it's right, it's fine. I was clicking on a cavern. Right, so let's give the computer some woodworm. Okay, this is going to be probably the largest attack they'll receive. This is going to be the smallest. So this one I think is just going to be 3 Devil's Coach Horse larvae. Again though, with this, we can add difficulty modes in. So 2 in normal, and 3 in hard, 5 in insane. Actually, I'll do 6 in insane. By the point you're taking on insane, you should know when the computer's gonna tunnel this out, and you should have a force in their colony ready for it. They can all be Devil's Coach Horse larvae. Oops. Right, so I'm just going to duplicate those and bring them down here. Devil's Coach Horse adults. Okay. So again, 2 in hard, 3 in normal, 5 in insane. I'm just going to leave it there for now, and in play testing we'll alter the amounts of these things. This is going to be the final one they tunnel out, so a lot of adults is fine in the final area. Here's a question: what type of biome will the next campaign levels be? We have a beach, and now we have a rainforest. We're not 100% on the biome, but we are pretty close to have made a final decision. See, with doing fire ants, particularly the invasive version of them, they can be anywhere really. They're currently invading Australia, I believe. And they've got a huge campaign to try and stop them spreading in Australia, but that's not where we're looking. I'm not going to answer that question just yet, just in case it changes. But in due course, we'll answer that one. But do bear in mind that it's going to need to require water. Because fire ant bridges. We'll try and make it different, quite different to what we've got so far. Okay, so what time is it? Oh, we're pretty much at the end of the stream here. I'm going to put the funnel webs in this area, and the idea will be is as part of their stupid move, they will tunnel down to the funnel webs here, and then place a marker here with their stuff, with their soldiers in, and their soldiers will just keep going and getting killed, and it'll be draining their food reserves, and you'll have to come to their aid and wipe out the funnel webs for them. And we haven't decided on all the creatures that are coming in the update, and I know raspberry crazy ants are very linked to fire ants, but a lot of what we decide will be based on the biome, like you're talking about, that we finally pinpoint for the creatures, for the fire ants. So again, I can't really answer that one because it's likely to change. Okay. Last quick read of the chat, and then I'll close up shop for the day. Well, I'll end the stream and carry on working. It would be cool to have enemy ant, the black ant, an enemy slave maker. The wood ant enemy are other wood ants, leaf cutter enemies, the army ants. I see. Right. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream there. Hope you enjoyed it, and this mission's going to be a bit different. Like I say, I won't be streaming next week, but I should be streaming again tomorrow, and we'll continue this map tomorrow. I might leave this map where it is at the minute. Maybe I'll put the funnel web stuff in and then leave it, so therefore the underground's actually done, and then move on to some other things for the rest of the day that I need to get done. But tomorrow, I think what we'll be setting up is the surface a bit. So we'll be putting groups of creatures on the surface for the enemy to attack and for you to attack, and food and stuff. And then maybe we'll look at setting up the objective. Yeah, look for me around the normal time tomorrow, over about 11 o'clock. Yep. Thanks very much for joining me, and I will see you either tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow if you're about. See you then. Ta-ra.